Hi, I'm student meteorologist Chandler Pruitt, and this is FSU weather. You can take a look outside currently. We have those layers of clouds and the sun setting behind Doak Campbell Stadium. It's been a really gorgeous day out. Current temperatures, 64 degrees. Partly cloudy, like I said, with winds coming out of the east at 9 miles per hour. Take a look at the radar. Well, we have a flash flood watch in Georgia. However, here in the Big Bend region, we're pretty good. We have some rain off into our east. And when you zoom out and take a look at the west, we have some rain along Louisiana and Mississippi that will make its way towards our region tomorrow and bring some severe weather potentially. And for tonight, well, 56 will be our low with rain that's starting to make its way in. For tomorrow, we'll get up to 71, and yes, there will be some severe weather, so stay weather aware and stay tuned tonight. And for our show, well, we'll talk about the severe weather, a cool down, as well as our past look at the severe weather we had on Monday. But for more of that, well, we're going to tune in right now. FSU weather starts.
Good evening. Happy Hump Day, Tallahassee. I'm student meteorologist Zach Richards.
I'm student meteorologist Chandler Pruitt.
You know, we've had a pretty interesting start to our week. You know, we've already had one bout of severe weather. We could get another one coming into the day tomorrow. So a very active pattern that's set up for pretty much the whole country.
That's right. We've been basically bookend this week. We had severe weather on Monday, which we'll get to talk about a little bit more so on this show. And well, we have a severe weather threat tomorrow, and like we always want to emphasize, you got to stay weather aware. Make sure you have multiple ways to alert yourself. Make sure you have those communication methods between you and your friends, your family, as well as those warning systems. So.
Absolutely, and you know, it doesn't take the biggest threat level in the world, you know, to get something that could potentially be damaging. You know, the Tallahassee tornado that happened a couple weeks ago now was only a marginal risk. So, you know, a lot of people might overlook that, but if it happens to be where you are in the world, it doesn't matter what the threat level on the map is.
That's right. All it takes is one small incident, and, well, it can change your life forever. So we would love for you guys to stay prepared and stay weather aware.
Absolutely. We have a jam-packed show for you tonight. There's a lot going on, and we are going to get to. I think Chandler's going to take us a look now at the southeast and see what we're going to get into.
And that's right, yes. So for the southeast, well, our current conditions, well, we have basically a crazy gradient going on. You can see really the cold front. It's basically made its way through the Mississippi region, and it's making its way towards Alabama, and it's sweeping by New Orleans. Will bring some severe weather potentially. We'll talk about that more on the show. Zach actually will talk about New Orleans seeing some potential severe weather overnight tonight. At least we'll get to see it tomorrow, so we'll have the visual and be able to see whenever that severe weather is coming. Taking a look at the dew points, well, very dry up in Little Rock, and well, that's all associated with behind that cold front. Once you get that cold front moving through, you have that dry air that's coming from the Arctic that's just really like keeping the conditions extremely dry. But the exception, and it's always the exception really, is Florida. Well, we have basically very muggy conditions for most of Florida, except for the Big Bend. We're actually a little bit dry. That's great. That's great. It was very enjoyable today. But whenever you start moving south towards Orlando, Tampa, Miami, it is pretty moist out. Well, you also look, well, they also have some rain, at least in North Florida and potentially a little bit in South Florida. We also have that flash flood watch in almost all of Georgia. And you can take a look and see that there's some snow in Arkansas, Tennessee, and parts of Mississippi. Also some freezing rain as well. And taking a closer look, well, we can see that there's a freezing rain actually that made its way pretty close to New Orleans, and we have a very strong batch of storms that are making their way towards New Orleans. Like I said, have that potential severe weather tonight. So if there's anybody viewing this that's in New Orleans, well, take precautions, make sure you're weather aware. Taking a look up a little farther north, see Memphis is really, they're getting drilled right now with some snow, man. And you see Little Rock is also having a nice fun time experiencing that winter, at least one last winter blast. We may be seeing a little bit more, who knows. also my old home in Nashville, you guys are seeing some snow as well. And, well, we have those watches and warnings, that winter storm warning associated with all that snow. And, well, we have some rain in South Florida as well, like I mentioned. And as you move on for the next 48 hours, well, we'll have that rain that starts to sweep its way through the Big Bend region. And, well, that's pretty much our biggest story for tonight, is we're really just emphasizing that we will see that severe weather here in the Big Bend and the Panhandle region. And for today's storm outlook, well, like I said, we'll have some potential stormy weather in the New Orleans area and also basically almost all of the Gulf. Even here in Tallahassee, we're under a marginal risk. That's pretty dangerous. But for tonight's lows, well, like I said, it's basically separated by that cold front. And for tomorrow, we'll see very similar conditions as we saw today. But I'm going to toss things off to Zach with a look at our local.
Yes, thank you, Chandler. And no, it has been a really nice day today. Like I said, a little cooler maybe than I would have liked it, but look at the beautiful, absolutely gorgeous sunset we have out there right now. We just got another update. Those clouds are kind of hanging around, just some low clouds, nothing, too of impending doom out there or anything, but a nice contrast to that brilliant sunset, 64 degrees with partly cloudy skies. We got some of those east winds hanging around. Now, as we get up here towards Thomasville and Valdosta, we can see this green shading. That is actually a flash flood watch. It's going to run all the way till Friday at 7 a.m. So that kind of lets you know, it's a little foreshadowing. We're going to get some heavy rain potentially as we get into the next 24 hours or so. If you look over here towards day and down towards Branford, you can see some of those light showers making your evening commute a little bit drizzly out there. Over there towards Lake City, you guys are probably also seeing a few of those low clouds, some of those misty showers hanging around. And the big picture of the southeast right now, this is all part of a larger slug of moisture that's kind of pushing off the coast there. It's heading up towards the Carolinas. But here behind my back, let's also not ignore up towards Memphis. You guys are getting absolutely hammered with a massive winter system right now. You can look right now at the Big Bend, 60 in Valdosta, 65 down in Perry. You are a warm spot tonight. 59 up towards Thomasville and Bainbridge. Those sun rays are going to be peeking through those clouds for only a couple more minutes. And the dew points, not too bad. In the 40s, lower to mid 40s. And Perry, of course, we have those showers sticking around, a little more moisture down there. Now, the next 24 hours, this line starts to approach, and we could have some embedded, stronger to severe storms with this. We're talking small, potentially moderate-sized hail, some damaging winds, isolated tornadoes, So it's definitely a good idea to be weather aware. And of course, as we get towards 6 o'clock tomorrow, notice this line has not moved much. So we're going to really be piling up that heavy rain. Now, the next 3 days here in Tallahassee, we do have that storm risk for tomorrow, 71 degrees. The front comes through. We cool down to 56. We have those showers hanging around. And then Saturday, the sun comes back out, but there's lows feeling, not too nice, maybe down towards 34 degrees, so definitely below average. And that week ahead, showing those rain chances kind of really continuing for the first part of the week here. As we get from Thursday into Friday, we have that 80% chance on Thursday. Things start to taper down on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, however, things are going to be drying out. A little bit cooler maybe, but next week, we finally start to warm up. And could this be really the start of our long-lived spring? Some models might be saying that. We'll talk about that more, of course, as we get into the next week. But overall, not too bad, Chandler. I mean, we have a couple days of rain to get through, and things really improve.
That's right. And, well, talking about the rain we've been experiencing, we also talked about how we experienced some severe weather on Monday. And just to highlight, we had a couple of tornadoes in the Big Bend and Panhandle region. So we had an EF0 in Panama City, and that same system brought an EF2 in Damascus, Georgia.
Yeah, so it's called cycling. So it's when these supercell, these tornadic thunderstorms, they kind of put down tornado after tornado. And we see this a lot out in the Great Plains, but it really can happen anywhere. And we just had the ingredients come together. The upper level support was really, optimal for these things. And unfortunately, one storm can be, a double whammy or even worse.
Exactly. And interestingly enough, we were trying to see this storm firsthand, of course taking all the precautions that storm chasers and meteorologists do take when observing these crazy and dangerous phenomena. But as we were actually looking at this storm system, intercepting it, it was actually recycling, like you said. So we didn't get to see a tornado, but we saw the exact cell that would later produce the EF2.
Absolutely. And, even kind of far off, there was a little bit of a lower risk up in North Carolina, and there was a much stronger storm up there, and unfortunately that one was quite dangerous and ended up with some fatalities, I do believe.
Yes, it was an EF3, which the scale is basically 0 to 5, so 6 types of tornadoes, and that was right in the middle. Even an EF1 or 2 can cause a lot of damage, and that was unfortunate for North Carolina, but it shows that even whenever you're in those small, like those very slight, or not slight, those very marginal risks, it's still a potential danger.
Yeah, evidence has suggested that people really underestimate the word marginal, right? I mean, it's not a word we use necessarily in our everyday vocabulary, but just because the word is marginal doesn't mean there's not a risk. And, kind of like I said before, just because you're a level 1 risk on the map, if that happens to be, your neighborhood the tornado comes through, the map can say whatever it wants. Your life is forever changed.
Exactly.
So it's always important to prepare no matter what the level of risk. So we're going to take a look now at the wall and the national. We're going to zoom out here to the big picture. There it is, looking pretty chilly out there tonight. Of course, everyone except for Florida and parts of Georgia tonight, you're below freezing pretty much. Anybody there in the dark blue, those purple colors, especially as we get up here towards Canada, this is really, really cold air. Now, of course, this is all in contrast to the past couple of days where we broke lots of record low temperatures here across the plains. But, 9 in Minneapolis, pretty balmy compared to the many negative degrees. You were like 10, 20 degrees below zero. So it has moderated somewhat, and of course up in the Northeast as well, still pretty chilly. And of course where those chilly conditions are, not very much water vapor in the atmosphere, 2, 3, and 9, single digits for your dew points. It's only 4 in Detroit and 5 in Boston. Contrast that with Miami, and you're down at 72 degrees, your only season of the year, muggy, and it still refuses to change. Wind speeds and directions, so a couple of things to note here. Lots of wind speeds out of the east, and as we get into the overnight tonight, we're going to see these switch out of the south. We're going to bring up some of that Gulf moisture ahead of the storm, and this is also a little bit of a contrast too. We're not seeing as many of those northerly winds as we did before, in the center of the country. We have this double barrel low, and we have another little low there over Miami. It's keeping things pretty unsettled here across the southeast, and that huge, just nasty looking bunch of snow. I mean, it's awesome if you love the snow, but if you're those people on I-40 right now that's currently shut down and all those people are stuck, you're not having such a great time. Big upper level low pressure system, you can see that big swirl right there, and all of that moisture really getting drug up the Mississippi River Valley. Here in the Pacific Northwest, that high pressure, you can see the clockwise flow there, kind of putting some light snow showers. Things are just generally cool and snowy, pretty unsettled, but nothing really organized here. Now, if you want to talk about organized snow, Cincinnati, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, this stuff is on the way as we get down here towards just west of Nashville, but really looking down towards Memphis. Texas, you guys have had a really, really rough week, but something I want to show you here that's really cool. All of these clouds that they look like they're clouds and they're not moving, that's actually snowfall that's still on the ground. It's so cold and the snow is so reflective, it actually looks to the satellite like there's clouds on the ground. So pretty unusual for this area, but definitely evidence of what you've been through here in the Lone Star State. And as we look here through the southeast, we do once again, we have those flash flood watches, just indicative of that line of potentially severe showers and storms that's going to cut up through the southeast. And Florida, you're still showery. We've seen this a lot this winter. Things are pretty unsettled. Watches and warnings right now, there's all the winter storm warnings in the pink, the advisories, of course, in the purple, and the flood watches here out to the east. So really a tale of two sides, the warm and the cool side of this system. Today's storm outlook, once again, down towards New Orleans, and between New Orleans and really Panama City Beach, that's where you're going to see the slight risk. That's a 2 out of 5 on the scale. Just general thunderstorms elsewhere in the southeast. Tonight's forecast, we're really seeing some of that cold Arctic air, but not quite as chilly as it has been, with the exception of the southeast, things staying pretty cold. Tomorrow's forecast, you're looking at 83 in Miami, and really getting colder as you go north and west from there. All right, Chandler's going to take us with another look at our local and maybe go into a little more detail.
That's right, yeah. So we are the exception. So our current high for today was right around average, pretty warm compared to most of the national outlook. And our low was 34, so that was below average. However, it didn't get anywhere near our record set in 2007. Looking at that satellite and radar, you have the potential flash flood watch in Georgia. However, here in the Big Bend, we're pretty clear until you zoom out and you look at, well, we have that batch of rain that's starting to make its way. We talked about how there's going to be potential for some rain tonight. Well, that is it right there. And we see some more rain also making its way from south to north through the northern Florida region. Our current temperatures, well, we're sitting at 60s for the most part for most of the area. Once you get up into Georgia, you see 59 Apalachicola. However, we're all sitting pretty comfortable conditions. Like I said, they're dry conditions as well. So this is just great spring weather almost, but it's a little chillier for spring weather here in Florida. Looking at those dew points, really just dry for the most part everywhere. We have 44 degrees here in Tallahassee, 43 in Bainbridge. Get down into the coastline, we get up to 48. However, for the most part, that is still dry. And looking at those winds, like Zach mentioned, we have those easterly winds. They will shift tonight to be from the south, bringing in that moisture and that warm air that will help support an atmosphere that basically brings severe weather tomorrow. So we have the conditions. And looking at the next 24 hours, well, we see that rain start to make its way through Tallahassee at 6 a.m. And, well, it's going to persist until 6 p.m. And we really will see a lot of heavy rain. Whoever's doing the show tomorrow is going to have to walk in the show probably a little bit soaking wet. But, yeah, we see that this is a pretty heavy event and pretty dangerous conditions because there will be a potential for some rain-wrapped tornadoes in the mix. And for tonight's forecast, well, 50s for the most area. And for tomorrow's forecast, 70s and 60s. But like I said, we have those stormy conditions, so that's the main story for tomorrow. For the week ahead, well, we're looking at storms for tomorrow and then some rain tapering off on Friday. But we will see that cool down as we get down to 56 as our high for Friday. And going into Saturday, we'll see our low at 34, so right around that freezing mark. So if you have any plants that you don't want them to get frostbitten, well, I would say bring them inside. And whenever you're looking at Saturday and Sunday, pretty awesome conditions. We'll see potentially for some rain to return Monday, but that's all. We'll go back to Zach.
Yeah, let's have a closer look at some of that potential severe weather here in one of my favorite cities I've ever been to. Welcome to New Orleans. Now, you might have put a little damper on things because of coronavirus. You know, there wasn't all the big Mardi Gras parades and festivities. That's kind of sad. But at least we have some thunderstorms, right? We got something to liven up the atmosphere out there. Over up there towards Hammond, and especially over towards Baton Rouge. I also want you to notice, too, a little bit of pink we have up there. The mixed precipitation is getting really, really close. Not really expecting much of that in the area, but just indicative of how close that cold air is, and we are still dealing with this really potent winter event. Now, you can see the line as we get down there between Alexandria towards Lafayette, and really as we get down toward the Gulf Coast there, and we expect this line to continue to build as it pulls here towards the east. Now, the watches and warnings, we don't have any severe warnings on this line yet, but plenty of winter warnings. And so after this line comes through, once again indicative, it's going to be really, really cold. You're going to get a nice cold blast. It's a pretty strong front. Like I said, before New Orleans itself, no watches or warnings right now. But those could be on the way. Make sure you do have a way to get warnings if you are in the area. 50 right now in Slidell, but 36 in Hammond. So not, you know, we're talking the order of tens of miles, and we're talking, 15 to 20 degree temperature drop. It's 50 right now in New Orleans, and 63 in Houma, and Barras down here at 61. So closer you get to the water, the warmer it gets, but that front is on the way. Wind speeds still here out of the east, except for Baton Rouge. That front now has passed, and you can see those northerly winds have really taken over. So hour by hour, here as we go right now, we're going to have a little pause point here in the next hour or so. We expect New Orleans to really be in the thick of these storms. Model indicating some of these could be stronger. You see those dark red colors. You know, any of these could have embedded strong winds, damaging winds, small hail, maybe a potential for a tornado, so do have a way to get those warnings. Next 24 hours, that really pushes through, and we're really just left with some clouds. And hopefully by this time tomorrow, the clouds will clear out, and it'll be a chilly but sunny into your week. As you can see, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in New Orleans, things start warming up about 10 degrees every time. And by next week, we finally started to moderate our temperatures. And you know what? Good start to next week, mid to upper 60s, not really any chance of rain. That's what I'm talking about is a good 7-day forecast. So now we're going to go look at Florida and see where that line of storms is going.
That's right. Yeah, so New Orleans, they're getting all that sunshine. Let's talk about if the Sunshine State gets any. You see those current conditions, 50s in the North Florida region. However, once you start making your way down to Central Florida and South Florida, you are around the 60s and even the 70s in Miami, or 79 degrees. Well, looking at those dew points, also the same kind of gradient. You have 44 degrees in Tallahassee. However, as you make your way into Central Florida, 59, and then 70s once you get into South Florida. So really muggy conditions once you get down there. And we also see some rain in South Florida and some rain on the Gulf Coast that is going to make its way into the Big Bend region later tonight. We also see some rain that's starting to clear out of Jacksonville. However, you're not out of the dark yet. Zooming in South Florida, well, we see those storms. They're coming out of the south, making their way towards Central Florida. And, well, Miami, you guys will see that cold front later on in this week. You see that by Saturday, you'll cool down to 74 as your high. However, you will see potentially a little bit of rain maybe on Friday, although it's not quite a sure thing. You see that rain coming out of the south into Central Florida, some heavy parts in Port St. Lucie. However, as you look at the rest of Central Florida, pretty clear conditions. And looking at Tampa, you guys are going to cool down a little earlier than Miami, get down into 73 as your high on Friday, and also see that rain from that cold front that's going to make its way through, basically touching almost all of the Sunshine State. Orlando, same story. Get down to 78 as your high on Friday. And again, some rain, potential severe weather, so have to take precautions in that regard. And looking at North Florida, well, we see basically widespread, pretty disorganized rain. It's just making its way from south to north, bringing in with it some warmer air, again, that will support potential for a little bit of severe weather, although we're mainly focused on the Big Bend region for the severe weather threat. You see that we have some rain north of Jacksonville, pretty heavy, that's making its way off the coastline. And looking at our forecast, we'll get down into 61, again with that rain and cold front on Friday. And looking at Panama City, you guys, well, we're sitting pretty clear right now, a little bit of clouds making their way. However, it's pretty good conditions, but that will change tonight. And it's tomorrow with 50s as your high for Thursday and Friday. But now I'm going to toss things off to Zach to take a look at Tallahassee.
Yeah, we have one last look here, and the sun has kind of disappeared here behind the clouds. If you just started watching tonight, we just had a wonderful sunset here over Doak Campbell Stadium, and you know what? One of the best ones I've seen so far this year. We still have 64 degrees, and those partly cloudy skies, and those east winds kind of keeping things pretty calm and stable for right now, but we don't expect that to last. As I said, 64 here in Tallahassee. The sun has officially set in Valdosta, and the darkness is quickly approaching with those cooler temperatures tonight. Yep, there we go. So darkness is moving in as we speak. Temperatures around 60. We do have this flash flood watch, like we said again, up here towards Thomasville, Valdosta, up towards Albany, really most of Georgia. Until Friday at 7 a.m. So really over the next 24 to 36 hours, we're expecting a really heavy line of rain. Speaking of rain, over here towards Day, Live Oak, Branford, you guys have seen some showers the last couple of hours. Over here towards Lake City, you have one last little light shower down here that'll be making its way through, but a lot of this activity has really died off with the sunset, and we expect most of that trend to continue. Now, the national picture, it's a mess, right? It's been a really messy week for weather. We have a really potent winter storm right here. The same winter storm that could potentially bring, it's brought inches of freezing rain. We're talking feet or up to a foot of snow in some locations and maybe tornadoes and hail all out of the same system, really dynamic system. And that's really going to be what's pushing through. The cold front associated with this, so here's the line. Let me step out of the way. Now this is tomorrow, right around 6:30 a.m. down towards Apalachicola. We see some of these heavier showers. Now any of these little red dots could potentially have those severe characteristics. So make sure you have a way to get your warnings. The model can't tell us exactly what county by county, but just get the general idea by, the time you're driving home tomorrow, we expect these showers and storms to really be on our doorstep. So tonight, 56 degrees, we have those chances of rain increasing. Those winds have shifted now to out of the southeast. And our day part forecast for tomorrow, 8 a.m., as we get towards noon, we end up at around 70 degrees, but we have those rain and those thunderstorms, which are just going to continue to plague us. We're playing Pitt this weekend, and being a West Virginia fan, I always love Pitt to get a good beating no matter who is doing the beating. 56 degrees with their sunny skies. Get out to the game if you possibly can. And I look at our week ahead. Now, just basketball, it's going to be a great weekend for pretty much everything. We have, 56 degrees, and then 64 on Sunday, things start to warm up. And really, as we start getting into next week, this is a great start to look. I hope that this is the start of spring for us here in Tallahassee. And, can it just stay this warm all the time and we skip the 90s and 90% humidity? Can we just stay at 70 and sunny?
That's right. Well, we are both out-of-staters. We don't call Florida our true home. So I guess we come from a little bit of a biased perspective. You being all the way up in West Virginia and I'm from North Carolina, we both love those nicer, cooler conditions.
Hey, anytime it's above freezing in February, it's an awesome 7-day forecast. We're looking at a fantastic next couple of days. We've got to get past the rain and thunderstorms. Not everyone is a meteorologist. Not everyone loves the thunderstorms. Not going to be too long lasting. Let's get through the next 24 to 36 hours, and we've got an awesome looking week ahead.
Yeah, the weekend, we'll actually see some sunshine on the weekend. We'll be able to actually enjoy that for once. But yeah, so those conditions, we'll see like those temperatures drop down into the 50s as our highs and 60s as our highs for Saturday and Sunday. Just really enjoyable conditions.
But thankfully not sticking around too long.
Yes.
Unlike other parts of this winter where it seems like the Florida cold never really goes away, quickly rebounding and not immediately bringing another front back. So maybe not for several days. So
that's right.
slow and steady warming. But make sure to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/FSU Weather. Of course, like us on Facebook at the same address /FSU Weather. Watch us live on YouTube at FSU Weather as well. If you're not in town, you can watch us anytime, anywhere in the world. And follow us on Instagram at FSU Weather. Send us those weather pictures, whether it be hail, wind damage, or just a beautiful sunset. We would like to see it all. We'll put it right here on the air for you on FSU Weather.
Yeah, but that's been a wrap. We've basically had a very packed show. We'll unpack some more tomorrow as the severe weather comes through. Stay weather aware. But this has been FSU Weather. Have a good night.